Hi, this is Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm here with two alternatives for the February 2022 Paper Pumpkin Kit Safari Celebration. Let's get started. For this first Safari Celebration card, we're going to start by stamping the sentiment. And I've got one of those strips that we all cut off our card layers and my fresh freesia ink. So let me just set my stamp on here and give that a light rub across the top. I'm not pouncing this in the ink. I find I get a better impression if I just lightly rub across the back and pick up the ink, give it a moment to pick up. Now, the happy birthday is not one straight line, so take that into consideration as you're stamping. There we go. Let's set that aside a moment. And I'm done with the fresh freesia, so let's put that out of the way. And then I've got my Pear Pizzazz ink and another scrap piece of basic white. And I'm going to use that leaf that was in the Safari Celebration stamp set. And I want a couple of those. Actually going to stamp it 3 times because I'd rather have an extra once I get putting the card together than not enough. Okay, so then let's grab my paper snips here. And we're going to cut these out. This is just easy, fussy cutting. You can go right around the outside edge. Okay. Or you can choose a more detailed cut and wiggle your paper around. You're not moving your scissors. You're turning the paper and give yourself a little bit of detail around the edge. And it doesn't take a great deal longer, but a little bit of time. So you decide whether you want that smooth outside border or something with a little more visual texture. Okay, so there are our 2 leaves. I don't know if you can see the difference. Okay, let me put this aside, and we're going to do a little bit of punching now. I have the bow punch, and this can be found in the January-June mini catalog. And if you don't have that catalog, you can go right to my store using the link in the description below the video. Now I'm punching a couple of pieces from Soft Succulent. And then I've also got a scrap of Pear Pizzazz. And we're going to use that to punch just some of the leaves. Trying to maximize the use of my scrap here. Okay, so a couple of leaves. And then let me bring in my trimmer and put these scissors out of the way. So I've got my paper trimmer, and I've got one of the card bases in fresh freesia from the kit, and just going to cut right up the score line in that card base. And then before I do anything else, I want to cut a 1/4 inch off the bottom here, and I'm going to trim, make sure that that's at 4 1/4 and set that aside. And then we're just going to cut 3 panels here. Now all the measurements for all of the pieces will be found in a project sheet that I'll send out in my newsletter next week. So if you're signed up for my newsletter, that will come to your inbox. Let's move this out of the way, and we're ready to assemble. Start our assembly. We're going to add our pieces from the card base to some Pear Pizzazz matte pieces, and I'm just going to add multi-purpose glue to each of those. That multi-purpose glue gives us a little bit of wiggle room, which is an awesome thing. Okay, oops. Let's wiggle that right back into place so that our border is even all the way around. And now let's add dimensionals. Put this over here and flip this one over, and okay. Now let's bring in our card base, which is thick basic white, and I've got this strip that I cut off our card base, and we're going to add that inside as accent. And that looks straight, and make sure I've pulled it all the way over to the side here. Let's make sure that is straight. Lots of things can look straight if you've got them angled. Whoops. And I'm just being a mess here. There we go. And we'll put these down. Going to place these outside edge ones so that we've got our spacing, and then I'm going to adhere the center one first, and that will make it easier to, again, get our spacing so that, and I'm not pressing that hard, not until everybody's kind of stuck in place. And by not pressing hard, then you're giving yourself some wiggle room with those dimensionals that you might not ordinarily have. And I just want to check. I think my spacing is a little off on the center one, so I'm going to gently lift and pull that over just a smidge. And the bottom of this one looks like it might be off. Again, I'm lifting gently. That's all you need to do since you didn't press down hard to begin with. Okay, those look straight now. And then I've got a piece of the Friendly Hello designer paper. That's from one of the Celebration offerings. Celebration does run through the end of February, and buying a prepaid subscription for your paper pumpkin is a great way to earn a Celebration product. Okay, and just going to lay that on there. And before I press hard, I want to tuck in the pieces that I punched. Now, I did add a couple of pieces of rich raspberry with that bow punch. And let's get our leaves. I like to stack the whole bit and then add my adhesive. And so we're kind of hiding the rich raspberry. We're using that as some more background than foreground. Okay, and it just adds another layer of definition there, more than, again, visual texture. By itself, I thought the rich raspberry was too much, but sandwiched with the soft succulent, it's perfect. And I'm just dotting in adhesive between a little bit. And then I'm going to tuck that right up here in this corner, so it's just peeking out. Okay. And then we need to trim our sentiment down. And I'm just going to use paper snips to do that and use my fingers as a guide. And this one's just a little long on this side. And then we need some dimensionals on the back of this, of course. I'm going to lay this in place lightly and tuck in a couple of those stamped leaves that we did right behind. Let's lift this end up. And that just all fills up there together. And there's our first alternate for the February 2022 Paper Pumpkin Safari Celebration. Let me clean up and I'll be back with another. For the second Safari Celebration card, we're going to start by pulling in the paper trimmer and the bumblebee card base. And I want to cut that for my layer on top of the card. And then let's trim the bottom here. And we're going to save both of these pieces and set aside. And we're done with the trimmer now. And then let's do some stamping. I've got a piece of basic white that I've cut with one of the Stitch So Sweetly dies, and you've got that nice scallop and then the stitching around. And I want my Memento ink and my bumblebee. And let's grab my stamps over here. And I'm going to ink my tropical leaf from the Safari Celebration stamp set in basic black. And just add a little kind of random pattern here. Now, since that is a linen pad, I am pouncing my ink on, and I'm doing it upside down so that I can see whether my stamp is fully inked. Trying to take into consideration where my next layer will be. And then I think I want just one more little bit escaping at the top here. And that's going to be enough of the leaf. And then we're going to add in some of the bumblebee. Just want to make sure that, and turning this just a little bit as we go so that you don't get the same look of the pattern. Come here. And then I think I want to just come off the bottom there. So there's our little random background, quick and easy. Let's close this up and move it out of the way. And then next, I'm going to bring in my one piece for my sentiment. And let's grab that sentiment. So this says, "You are so," and I'm only going to ink up the "you are." And I'm having trouble catching the E, so I'm going to turn this and just make sure that I've gotten that. So I did not ink "so." Okay, let's set that aside a moment. Done with the Memento ink now. And then I've got my other piece of sentiment here and a piece of basic black. Let's rub that with my embossing buddy. I'm going to ink this in Versamark. And just rubbing, not mashing. You don't want to splat your letters. Let's open up this scrap paper now and sprinkle on some white Stampin' Emboss powder. The white Stampin' Emboss powder is part of the Basics trio of Stampin' Emboss powders. And I'm just flicking to get the loose bits off. And of course you need to put this right back in your jar. And let's pull out my heat tool. And I'm going to heat this first. And then I'm going to heat from behind. But I'm going to stop just a second because I see a little bit of stray powder. Well, of course, I've gotten my finger in it. Let me grab my paintbrush over here. And I've got a paintbrush that I've used in glue previously, and so it's a little sticky and stiff, which is perfect for pulling the stray bits off of my cardstock. Okay, that looks better to me. No sense starting with stray bits. Okay, now let's heat this again. Heating from behind will help to keep from blowing your embossing powder around while you're waiting for it to melt. Okay, and now I'm going to take this and die cut, and I'll be right back. So here are our die cut sentiment pieces, and again I've used some of those stitched So Sweetly dies, and we are ready to assemble. So first I'm going to bring in my inside layer of basic white, and I've got this strip of the bumblebee card base that we cut off at the beginning. And let's just add a little multi-purpose glue to that. And make sure that we're straight here. Okay. And then let's add that to the inside of our card base. Those little accent strips are a great way to use your little scraps of cardstock and designer paper. Okay, and then I've got a basic black mat and our card base that we cut down in the bumblebee. Just adding some dimensionals to this piece. Okay, and then I want some black Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of our mat piece. And pull those backing pieces off. And let's straighten this up on my grid sheet. Okay, and then I've got this piece that I randomly stamped, and after die cutting my pieces, I found that they're going to cover a little bit of my stamping, so I'm going to come back in and add a little bit of the bumblebee there so that there's enough of that showing. Okay. Of course, have to take off my backing pieces. And let's bring our card back in and make sure that I'm straightish and centered-ish. Okay, and then I want black Stampin' Dimensionals for the back of this piece. And let's go with a couple of dimensionals on this piece. These larger ones just fit. And I'm going to do a little dry fit. So I'm just going to set this down, trying to decide. I think I'm going to need to double stack this one, but I'm going to offset it because it's going to come off the edge here. Okay, so just set that lightly until we get this piece with it. Okay. And I need to double stack this one. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit of bumblebee gingham ribbon. And let's see how I do with tying a bow. My tails are fairly even. I just want a small bow on this with long tail. And we're going to fumble a moment and adjust and make sure this is going to be a pretty looking little bow tucked down here. So let's get that mini glue dot and go ahead and add this here. And then I'm going to add a couple more mini glue dots. I'm going to pick this up with my take your pick if it's going to cooperate with me, and give it a little bit of a roll so that it has a smaller profile, and then roll my ribbon a little bit. I don't want it to look like it's tight as it comes down here. And then the same thing here. Maybe roll the other direction. Okay. And let's grab that mini dimensional here and roll it up. And we're just going to put it right here on the edge. And that kind of softens the look of that. And there is my second alternative for the Safari Celebration Paper Pumpkin Kit from February 2022. Thanks for stopping in today. This was Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. Remember, celebration goes through the end of February 2022. Give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your card-making friends. And when you subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell, you'll be notified when I upload the next video. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter so that you get today's project sheets. Have a great day. Bye.